have a nanny or a babysitter by then to go check out Matt Rife at Golden One Center. But this is how the Kings get talked about. So obviously, Evan Sidery, who is a infamous aggregator, so he got wind of what Carmichael Dave said, and he says the Kings are preparing for a full-scale rebuild attempt, which will include attempting to trade their top players during this season. Then he tags Carmichael Dave. Sacramento will gauge the trade value on Domantas Sabonis, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, and others. So this guy, and we kind of know each other. We follow each other on social media, but Swipa, he is a Denver sports analyst for the Nuggets, okay? Mile High Sports also is on Locked On Nuggets. We've had on his co-host on the show multiple times. Good people out there in Denver. So he's got the Dave Chappelle meme, okay? And it is, looking like Rick James, and he says Keon Ellis. That's who he wants. So, of course, I got to read through just the comments on it. And another commenter who obviously is a Nuggets fan says Strother or Holmes, who is coming off of an Achilles injury. Strother, who Kyle's not here today, but there's an inside joke about how I don't like any of the young Nuggets players, and I just don't think they're very good. Peyton Watson, Julian Strother. And then you get Holmes, who is coming off of the Achilles, and they say Strother and Holmes for Keon Ellis. So I'm in a black hole because we're just, waiting for the commercial break to end. And somebody then responds to that person saying, we fleeced them once when we got Big Val for Saric, so let's dream big. Zeke for Ellis.
Damn.
That's how they talk about the Kings.
Damn.
We fleeced them once. We got Big Valanciunas for Saric. That's how the Kings are getting talked about throughout the league. You can get some real value. You can be out here and fleece the Kings. And I just was randomly looking through. We fleeced them once. They call him Big Val.
That's cold.
They call him Big Val. And meanwhile, the Kings throwing out Domantas Sabonis with a bruised rib. That's what's going on here, okay? That is what's going on here. 209 with an interesting text in 916-339-1140. If you want to be a part of the conversation. Had some good calls already. Got some good candidates for call of the day. We have to decide what the text of the day is going to be. 209 says, I feel like the Kings' hierarchy of needing to move on from starts with Domas, then Zach, then Schroeder, then DeMar, then Malik. Yeah, 209, I don't agree with that one. I think DeMar's got to be higher, and that's what I've been saying on the air. And I think it's just more realistic. I don't know how realistic Domas is. I definitely don't know how realistic Zach is. Zach had started out hot, then he had the back stuff, and, he's just a couple games here, but he hasn't been on a heater as he was at the start of the season. Schroeder, and they say Schroeder in parentheses might not be possible. I don't know if you mean literally, but yeah, at some point it would be possible to move Schroeder, and he, that 15 mil, that's kind of what it's built in at. And then Malik at the bottom. Yeah, if I were to make a hierarchy list, I guess the problem is I'd have to include how realistic it is as well. I'd have DeMar at the top. I'd probably have Schroeder next after that. Then I would go Domas, maybe.
These are your first to trade?
This would be my hierarchy, but this is my hierarchy also based on what I think is realistic. So Zach is not going to be that high because I just don't know how realistic it is. That's why Domas and Zach wouldn't necessarily be at the top for me. I think DeMar is the most realistic, and you just clear it out, and you're not even really looking to get a ton of, action back as far as guys that are going to play, unless we're looking at, some fours or whatever the case is on expiring contracts, because you can't bring in any more guards, right? You can't bring any more guards. Somebody else, or the 209 chimed in, said, yeah, my list was based on in a perfect world, not real, haha. Thanks for reading on air, go Kings. Of course, shout out to the 209. 916 says, Allen, we're not trading Sabonis. We'll not get enough value back from trading Sabonis. I don't know. It only takes one, as the old saying goes. That's what Brendan Nunez always says. It only takes one. That's where the conversation has kind of landed with Domantas Sabonis. It only takes one. He's got to get healthy. That's number one. And playing with the bruised rib is not the best way to get healthy. So he's got to get healthy, and then you can see what's out there. But yeah, I don't know that based on what Domas brings to the table, if you will ever get quote-unquote value. But the other part is, again, do you want to open things up? The Domantas Sabonis experience is probably, or it was, honestly, during that Beam Team season, Domantas Sabonis was probably a top 3 polarizing topic in the NBA.
I felt at the end of last season, you had a lot of value for Domantas Sabonis. And then now at the start of the season, it's evaporated. It's gone away.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Şengün doing what he's been doing didn't help. Zubac doing what he's been doing didn't help. Going back to 2023, it was, who is this guy? Is he just a diet Jokic, a generic store Jokic? Who is this guy, right? Then you get paid, and he gets paid a lot of money, and then you're seeing not the same production, don't get me wrong, not the same production, but similar production from Ivica Zubac, and you get a Şengün in there, and obviously Wemby is Wemby, but you get a Şengün in there. Now all of a sudden people are looking around saying, if you include contract, when are you taking, you talk about hierarchy list, when are you taking Domantas Sabonis? Obviously Jokic is at the top. We can argue who's a big versus who's a 4. Some people would throw Jaren Jackson in there. I wouldn't, because he doesn't really play center to me. Some people would throw Anthony Davis in there. I wouldn't either, and Anthony Davis can't stay on the floor. But, you know, you get Wemby in there, who is just Wemby. You get Jokic, those two there. I think the issue is it's the Şengün leap, which we're watching, and they got Şengün on a pretty good deal. Now that dude's shooting threes, right? Then you have, obviously,
what about Hartenstein?
You get Hartenstein, who's in the West, right? And he's obviously not making what Domantas Sabonis is making. Zubac, these guys who, they're not the hubs that Domantas Sabonis is. But then when you added Schroeder, and we had the sound, we played it yesterday, Schroeder is saying, okay, I got LaVine on my left, I got DeMar on my right. Sabonis needs his touches because he likes to be the offensive hub. It's just it's such a tweener situation, which is why I think the tough evaluation to the texter's point is, where is Domas going to go? Here's the thing about Domantas Sabonis as we head into the 12 o'clock hour. Here's the thing about Domantas Sabonis. If you put him in a position where he is doing enough so his contract is fully valued, you're probably not good enough to win a championship. If you put him in position where he's doing less, but it's a better team, you're overpaying him. That is the Domantas Sabonis conundrum. So when you're trying to trade for Domantas Sabonis, there's a team out there, I heard a team not too far down the road, that could look at a Domantas Sabonis. And when I say down the road, I mean down the freeway. That could look at a Domantas Sabonis. But again, he's not going to do that $40 whatever million AAV there. He's probably not going to do it anywhere. That team is going to be better, but he's not going to do it. That's the conundrum and where they've been stuck with the Domantas Sabonis thing. When we return to Carmichael Davis saying they won't buy into it, what if Carmichael Davis is wrong? What if they do go out there and say, you know what we need? It's Ja Morant. We have a trade that you do not want to miss to kick off the 12 o'clock hour. More of your calls, more of your texts, more of your Sack Chat. Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports.
The Kings play here, baby.
Tonight.